The following program was funded in part by grants from Google AdSense.
Hello, and welcome back to Season 3 of PTLE. Today we're going to be talking about WQED Pittsburgh, a station with a long, eventful history and a solid collection of logos to go with it. I've always wanted to visit Pittsburgh. It's a beautiful city with a rich history that has unfortunately declined somewhat in recent decades. Now, I don't have a WQED mug, but I have some other mugs from Pennsylvania, such as WITF in Hershey or Harrisburg. This one's from the 70s, I love the design of it. And I have one from WLVT in Allentown. I'm pretty sure this is from the 80s, could be wrong. They might have used a design in the 70s, I'm not sure. And I also have one from WHYY, this is from the early 2000s. And last but not least, a WHYY mug from the 70s. I'm pretty sure this could be from the early 80s. And I decided to fill this with my Morning Joe. So without further ado, let's get on with it, because we have a lot to discuss.
Right now it's time to play the auction game! Yay! Alright, here's how you play. We're going to show you a videotape with PTLE. So here we go now with the auction game.
Our story begins in the mid-40s. Former Pittsburgh Mayor David L. Lawrence envisioned a world where 12% of American television stations were saved for non-commercial use. Lawrence proposed a non-commercial Pittsburgh station to the FCC. They were flooded with applications for new stations at the time and had opted to freeze new ones. But they promised him a license after the freeze, as long as he could raise the funds to get the station off the ground and maintain it. A man named Leland Hazard, who was an attorney for a Pittsburgh glass company, shared Lawrence's vision and joined him in the project. However, the two were not the only people in Pittsburgh seeking a TV license at the time. Westinghouse Electric Corporation, a Pittsburgh-based company, had recently diversified into industries such as television. They had TV stations in other parts of the Northeast, such as Boston and Philadelphia, but not in Pittsburgh. The FCC lifted their freeze in 1952, which left Westinghouse and what would become WQED in direct competition for the Channel 13 slot. Westinghouse's CEO was actually sympathetic to Lawrence and Hazard's cause, proposing that their stations simply share Channel 13. Hazard turned this down. Eventually, Westinghouse decided to delay their own interest for the sake of WQED, donating to them the TV tower they originally built for their own station. After further preparation, the station went on the air on April 1st, 1954. They're the third oldest surviving PBS station in the country, and one of the first TV stations in Pittsburgh. Their call sign means, much like the West Coast KQED, I'm gonna butcher this, but quod erat demonstrandum, a Latin phrase that means something to the effect of that which was to be demonstrated. When the tower of local Pittsburgh station WENS was damaged from a storm in 1955, WQED offered to host them until the tower was repaired. In the wake of new competition going on the air, WENS went off the air for good in late August 1957. They sold their facilities to WQED to use as a secondary outlet. And to make use of this, WQEX was launched as WQED's sister station on March 23, 1959. From its inception, WQED was affiliated with National Educational Television, but, strangely, WQED was also affiliated with commercial network NTA for a short time in the late 50s. The NTA Film Network mailed Hollywood movies and a small lineup of original programming to, at one point, over 100 stations across the country. It's unclear how long WQED was affiliated with NTA, and to make things even more confusing, 3 other stations in Pittsburgh were also affiliated with them. By the 60s, they were already creating a lot of major programming. They produced the first 9 episodes of the NET series Heritage, which featured famous poet Robert Frost. They also created a series named Black Horizons. First airing on June 14, 1968, and continuing to air to this day, it's the longest-running African-American public affairs show. I could not make a video about WQED without mentioning our neighbor Fred Rogers. His story could not be told justice in a video like this. He's not only one of the most important figures in PBS history, but perhaps TV history in general. He worked with WQED from the very beginning, as an off-camera character designer and composer for their first kids show, The Children's Corner. He left WQED in 1963 to host a CBC show of his own, before returning in 1967 to host the now legendary show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Again, I couldn't even begin to discuss why this show was so groundbreaking and is so beloved to this day, but you're probably at least a little bit familiar with the show anyway. Something that I can talk about, however, is when Rogers was brought to testify before Congress in May 1969. A few years prior, President Lyndon Johnson had signed the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967. This established the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and strengthened government support for public television. Soon before leaving office, he also proposed a bill that would eventually create PBS, with a budget of $20 million. However, when Richie Dix Nixon assumed office in 1969, he wanted to cut the budget in half. Rogers was seldom known at the time, as the show only began airing nationally in February of 1968. However, his 7-minute-long testimony brought Rhode Island Senator John Pastore to tears, and may have single-handedly been responsible for seeing the bill in its original form become PBS.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was not the only major national program WQED brought to the table either. From 1975 to 1988, WQED co-produced many nature specials with National Geographic. They aired nationally for 20 years and became a defining series of PBS. As well, for a time in the 80s, WQED had a satellite post-production studio in Los Angeles. Dubbed QED West, and sometimes known as Q Productions, it was primarily used for editing national programming. Up to this point, sister station WQEX was largely neglected, both by WQED management and viewers. The station used the same transmitter that WENS used in the 50s. It had to go off-air for over a year in the early 60s for repairs. Its signal was weak, black and white, even into the 80s. The transmitter completely broke down in 1985, which forced them to update the station's equipment. Much in the spirit of PBS of this time, they decided to rethink the station into something much more ambitious. In 1982, technology company Sony developed the Betacam video format, which was created with television and professional use in mind. It wasn't adopted by most TV stations at the time, but it was decided that WQEX would use this format to its advantage. They would also use a beta cart machine, a programmable machine that automated the tape switching process. This essentially automated the station entirely and made it unlike any other station in the country, never mind any other PBS station. The programming lineup itself was unique as well. It aired a number of British TV shows, movies, a small selection of original programming, among other things that PBS stations generally didn't air. With a viewer-funded budget of $4.6 million, WQED turned WQEX from the final black and white American television station to a station ahead of its time. In the late 80s, however, WQED began to experience financial woes. A large part of their financial stability in the 80s came from their relationship with National Geographic, which was essentially severed in 1988 when they decided to begin producing documentaries on their own. They accrued a lot of debt in the 80s, and without Nat Geo, they didn't have the money to pay it off. To attempt to fill the gap Nat Geo left, they collaborated with several other companies to produce new national series, but they kept getting screwed over by unfair deals, and these shows were nowhere near as popular as the National Geographic specials. Doing this also left a lot of their local programming in the dust, as they were pouring most of their resources into salvaging their dwindling national importance. Then President Lloyd Kaiser, who had been with WQED since 1971, even went on record saying that local programming was, quote, a poor investment and should be avoided to place more resources into purchasing national programming. To make matters even worse, a scandal occurred around this time. Shortly after Kaiser resigned from his position in 1993, 4 top executives at the station were caught raising their salaries at the expense of those below them. Their salaries saw a 30% increase, while they told the public they were actually taking a 10% cut. All of these issues prompted the formation of an organization of concerned citizens, dubbed the QED Accountability Project. Even in all this turmoil, there was still another matter to discuss. WQEX had unfortunately been stripped down to a WQED simulcast in November of 1997. If WQED sold the station, they could use the funds from the sale to potentially pay off the station's excessive debt. In order to increase the potential of buyers, WQED applied to the SEC for the removal of WQEX's non-commercial status. This was immediately rejected. WQED then attempted to sell the station in its non-commercial state to religious network Cornerstone Television. They planned an interesting maneuver where Cornerstone would move from Channel 40 to Channel 16, with the network PAX TV taking over Channel 40. This process would have netted Cornerstone and WQED a combined $35 million. The SEC approved this, on the condition that half of Channel 16's programming would be educational. This condition did not sit well with Cornerstone. Even after the SEC lifted the condition, they backed out of the deal. Unable to find another buyer, WQED had to continue hosting WQEX. The FCC eventually caved and revoked WQEX's non-commercial license in 2002, which let WQED maximize the channel's profit by, I kid you not, hosting shopping networks. Yeah, the very antithesis of public television. They ended up selling Channel 16 to PAX TV in 2010, which by this time was known as Ion Television. If you want to learn more about the past troubles of WQED, I highly recommend this book called Air Wars: The Fight to Reclaim Public Broadcasting. It's an account of someone who was part of the QED Accountability Project, and it paints a much more detailed picture of what WQED was going through in the 90s. In time, things got better for WQED. They stopped focusing on national productions, turning back to their local audience. They produced Rick Seaback's Pittsburgh History series, among other shows of local interest that helped re-cement their importance in their hometown. They were also finally able to repay the debt they had accrued over the years. In the early 90s, WQED had $17.9 million in debt. However, by 2015, they only had around $5 million, and this was cleared up by funding they received from a Spectrum auction. And now's the moment that you've all been waiting for. For the 50s and the 60s, WQED didn't have a standardized logo. They used a number of different designs, but none of them seem to have become official, except for this one. We have a station ID from 1967 featuring it.
This is WQED, Channel 13 in Pittsburgh.
This has been a presentation of the nation's first community television station. This is WQED, Channel 13, Pittsburgh.
In 1970, they adopted this design, and it was used for about a year. Also sometime in 1970, they created this design. It was designed by a man named Ken Cook. The logo was used both by the station and the station's parent organization, Metropolitan Pittsburgh Public Television. It can be seen on station IDs of the time.
This is WQED, Channel 13 in Pittsburgh.
Their first program IDs were all still and closing. They also had a very primitive color ID.
One of a series of programs produced by WQED in Pittsburgh.
You had really no indication at all. We've only recently learned that the official
very skilled.
Newsroom is a WQED color production.
In 1975, they used an opening logo for the first time. It's understandable, yet disappointing that WQED didn't have an animated logo by this point. It took until 1977 for most PBS stations to be using animated logos, but WQED was among the cutting edge of the network. Man, I sound like a man-child talking this seriously about logos. It wouldn't be too long until we got one anyway. In 1976, WQED debuted a new print logo, one that would form the basis of most of their logos since then. That being said, the previous symbol was still used by Metropolitan Pittsburgh Public Television until the late 80s. 1976 was also the year when they would introduce their first animated logo, and it was used until 1985. There are two versions. The first is a longer version used from 1976 until 1984, using the previous branding's font. The second version is a redone, shortened version used in 1985 with a contemporary print logo. This logo is considered cheesy by some people, due to the way the text flips in. It's like they don't even notice the background was filmed with the drone. I honestly really like it. The fanfare is bombastic, very Pittsburgh-esque, and it's an exciting way to begin the program. I also love all these wide-angle lens shots of the Pittsburgh skyline. Pittsburgh is one of my favorite skylines of all time. WQED would sometimes use a closing logo instead, and there are two versions. This one was used from 1976 until the late 70s. The second version has the updated print logo, and this was used until 1987. There was also a special logo created for use in 1982 episodes of their series The Chemical People. The 1983 episodes used the normal logo.
This WQED Presents Community Outreach Series was produced in cooperation. This WQED Presents Community Outreach Series was produced in cooperation.
Here's a small assortment of the station IDs they used during this time.
You're watching WQED 13 Pittsburgh. This is WQED 13 Pittsburgh.
WQED entered 1986 with a new program ID. This would be used until 2001, amazingly. There are three versions. The first version was used in early 1986. The second version has a reorchestrated fanfare and was used from January 1986 until 1991. A weird, shortened variant of this logo was spotted in 1990. I'm not sure if this is an actual variant or simply a tape switching error. The final main variant began use in 1992. The logo was reshot and reanimated, and this version was used until 2001. I understand why they had to reanimate the logo, with the new tower and all, but the original is very clearly superior to me. The lighting is so much more beautiful and colorful. The logo in general is very good, however. Much like the previous logo, the fanfare is nice, and it fits Pittsburgh well. It's WQED's most well-known logo, for good reason. Let's look at some of the station IDs while we're at it.
fans. We respect viewers like you.
Who are we? We're WQED Pittsburgh.
Happy Halloween from WQED 13, Pittsburgh.
Here, the show is so...
One final logo I should mention from this era is this closing logo, which was only used in 1988.
That is actually some horrible CGI, like holy shit.
In 2002, they created a new program ID. However, it came too late to be used for very long.
WQED presents.
It's alright. I like the concept, but the actual animation could have been done cleaner. At the beginning of 2003, WQED underwent a full rebrand, separating the Q from the rest of the body of the text and adding spheres to it. I'm not the biggest fan of this design, especially because the width of the swoosh is weirdly uneven, but it works well enough. There are two program IDs I know of from this era. The first uses the Pittsburgh skyline in the background. There are both standard and high definition variants.
WQED Multimedia presents.
The second program ID was used locally and has a green background. There is both a normal WQED variant and a WQEX variant.
WQED Multimedia presents.
These are all pretty good. The design still isn't my favorite, but they're suitable for the 2000s. Here are some station IDs.
Never miss your favorite WQED TV 13 program again. Check out our new overnight schedule and stay connected 24 hours.
Mid-2007 brought yet another logo for WQED. I absolutely love this design. It's sleek, clean, and even has local significance. The three swooshes in the Q represent the three rivers that intersect in downtown Pittsburgh. It's very cool to see how they evolved the original 1976 design into this. There are a few animated logos that use this design. The first is this, which was used as a station ID and, for a short time, a program ID. As a station ID, it was used from 2007 until around 2018. As a program ID, it was used from about 2007 until 2010. When it was used as a program ID, it was shortened. There are also a few station ID variants.
You're watching WQED Pittsburgh.
WQED Pittsburgh, changing lives for 60 years.
I really like this. The animation is very well done, and the orchestral score is a great homage to the older logos. The next program logo from this era was used from 2010 until 2018. It does the bare minimum. There's not much to say here. 2018 would see WQED update their branding again. They use the same symbol, but with new branding that revolves around colorful panels. This was used from 2018 until 2024. Here are the program ID variants. There are also station ID variants.
Explore on WQED Pittsburgh. Explore on WQED Pittsburgh.
I really like this branding package. It fits well for a public television station. The colors are vibrant without being overdone, and it feels very inviting. However, they recently retired this branding altogether. In November 2024, they began unveiling a new design, and this is what it looks like. Yeah. I don't think I need to say anything here. But I will, because I have a massive bone to pick with it. First off, compared to the previous logo, it feels so uninspired. There's nothing here. Second of all, I see what they tried to do with this new symbol, but it barely looks like a Q, and it looks tacked on. What does a speech bubble even have to do with public television? It feels like they're just starting to favor the radio station in that regard, which I'm going off script now. This reflects like a greater move that I see, like where people prefer NPR to PBS for some stupid reason. Also, the blue color that they chose is so dull and dark. Lastly, the animated logos so far are poor at best. I'm sorry, but this redesign was a bad idea in my book. They could have kept using the 2018 branding for years ahead. It's not like it was outdated. There's one thing that this logo did get right, however, the reintegration of the Q into the logo. That was the only major issue that I had with the 2007 design. Wow. Oh my god, that was a lot. And we're not even done! Let's quickly touch on WQEX. Because of their popularity, we don't have much footage of the station before their 1986 resurgence. However, we do know that their print logos were essentially modified versions of WQED's. I also have this 1983 station ID.
This is WQEX 16, Pittsburgh.
When they came back on air in 1986, they went under the nickname QEX 16. This was reflected in their branding.
The quickest way around is the shortest way home to WQEX, Channel 16 in Pittsburgh. We may be small, but we're mighty poor. We're WQEX, Channel 16 in Pittsburgh.
Oh my God, we're gonna have a train wreck. Look out! Oh, never mind. An almost news flash from WQEX, Channel 16, Pittsburgh.
You're watching non-commercial public television, WQEX, Channel 16, Pittsburgh.
A city so big, so cultured, it needs 2 public stations. We're one of them. We carry an FCC license. We're WQEX, Channel 16, Pittsburgh. Making sure the rivers are watered every day. We're WQEX, Channel 16, Pittsburgh.
This is your captain speaking. Up ahead is the West End Bridge. It reopened, but they didn't tell anybody. And now we ask that you grab a handrail because WQEX Channel 16 right here in Pittsburgh is about to shoot the logo. special. All right, up on your left is that Westinghouse.
I'm Mrs. George Bush, and you're watching WQEX, Channel 16 in Pittsburgh.
As I mentioned, they also started producing original programming. I'm not sure if there were any logos that came before or after this one, and I don't know exactly how long it was used. I know that it was used at least from 1991 until 1996, but I think it's pretty safe to say that it continued use on original programming until the station's demise. There are 3 versions that I have so far. The first was used until 1992. The second was used from 1992 until sometime in the mid-90s. The third is the final variant. It's kind of weird, but I like it.
His work done, the stranger rode on. He left nothing behind, he kinda wanted it that way. We're WQEX, Channel 16, Pittsburgh.
Here one can plainly see uranium electrons bombard the outer walls of the protons until the nuclei... Oh. Ah, theater. Of course, the French classical period was marked by the works of Racine. Educational TV in the eye of the beholder. We're WQEX, Channel 16, Pittsburgh.
Hello. I'm filming this segment like 2 weeks later. I don't know, like life just threw everything at me all at once, but as you can see, I got babas, a chopstick. This is how you know I am PBS man. Thank you for sticking to the end. If you stuck this far, you're a real one. You know, I covered a lot. This is the longest episode so far. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this thing has some actual kind of, like, purpose. Have a good night, everyone. I love shrimp.